that's the whole thing about judgment. A lot of people think about judgment and they think it only means judging something bad. But every time you're judging something, you are judging it. You every time you say, I'm giving it basically my, it's either good or it's bad. And behavior, I think, when we discern behavior that we find appropriate, good socialization skills, manners, and consideration and appreciation and all those things, we discern what we prefer. But that's not the same as judgment. Judgment is more of it's absolute, because sometimes
it's an absolute.
Yeah, and it seems, and that's where I think we run into trouble, is because we can take that to, we turn things into absolutes that aren't absolutes, because an experience that if I judge it to be good, I may prefer that experience, but someone else may not. So, so it's about learning, language for one thing, how to express things in a way that we actually are more empowered than. I find judgment very disempowering, because we're projecting onto the world and other people these little cages. It's kind of like, that's what to me judgment is. It's a box that you put stuff in, and boxes don't work that well.
No, and we're always expanding, so we're always being pushed out of boxes by the very nature of the universe. Mm-hmm. Expansion won't let us stay in these little man-made cages. We're always having to go beyond. And once we've discovered all the different aspects of a situation or an experience, there's more, because we become more complex. Life is always becoming more complex, and then we simplify it by learning about it, by expanding with it and into it. But I think that it might be good to kind of talk about something a little more concrete, about, starting from the personal always works. And, I had an experience this morning that something came up and I just was instantly infuriated, because I have this, my reality, not my reality, but within my reality, which is my story, I have wounds about being imprisoned, and for whatever reason, for being held back. Freedom, freedom is and to have somebody say, you can't do such and such, you can't tell, or you can't, it's like, push my button harder, won't you? So I went instantly into anger, and from that place of anger, I had to look at, well, what is it about this? What am I going to do about this? Because, there's always that understanding, what am I going to do about it? There was lots of parameters around it, and I do have this little, rule of thumb. Look at the behavior. What's the behavior? How, and for me, if I don't like something, how do I change? How do I stop that? Well, that's not always the best thing to do, but talking about it, being, talking about the behavior, about what I don't like. But then from that place, from the instant anger, moving back to what do I do about it? There's another layer. And then stepping back even further from that is like, recognizing my buttons. Oh yeah, Debbie, you always get, you get angry. That's your set point. Then I went online and I looked at the internet, that knowing about the triangle, the drama triangle. I was looking at Lynn Forrest's website, and she talked about how she uses the triangle of victim, the rescuer, and
perpetrator.
The bully. But oh gosh, there's a different
perpetrator.
I'm sorry,
perpetrator.
Yeah. Persecutor.
Persecutor.
That's
okay.
The word. So in that triangle, she made the point that we mostly end up in the place of victim, because that's a set point. That's kind of how we see ourselves in relationship to the universe in our current mass consciousness way. But how fluidly we can move from one role to the other, but how we also have a set point of a favorite. And, I love to be the rescuer, but I can be a persecutor so easily. I can be the victim anytime. And so this morning when my buttons were pushed, I felt like a victim. I moved into persecutor, into rescuing myself, rescuing the other people involved. It's just important to see that triangle that we step in, because when we're in it, again, we're not free. We're not in the most expansive reality that we can be in.
Well, it's closed, right? And a triangle is just like a box. It's closed, and you there's no way. But it's interesting when you said that. I thought this would be my perception, but when I think of those three roles, victim seems like the one that is the most wildly, like, I would feel like we stay in that one more often, because being the hero is, well, we got to pull something up, we got to step into that. Like, if I'm going to do something heroic, and it's easy to come champion someone else's, issue or kind of thing. Persecutor, well, we don't prefer to be that. Occasionally, of course, we will be that, but generally that's sort of a thing we really don't want to be that persecutor, because that's we've already decided that's kind of bad. And being the hero is good, and being the victim is pathetic. I mean, we don't want to be the victim, and yet there is something good in it. There is a there's a positive in that. So it's a funny thing, and I get that triangle that we go around it. So every so often we come out of being victims and become heroes for something, and also even in being the hero, sometimes we'll become a persecutor in our anger. So
well, it's a place wherever we think, I got to teach that person a lesson. That's a persecutor, because what's lesson to be taught here? This is just a dance, a 3-person dance, or a 3 parts of ourselves dance, because really it all comes down to a person's own reality. We may be dancing simultaneously with other people, but it's our dance as we go through the roles.
Wow. I just had this flashback, and I don't know if it's from this reality or not, but it's something I read, and I must have been on social media, but it was like, it was something exactly like that. It said somebody did something, and they were rallying people to make sure that this person got caught and paid for their crime. Like, there was a whole series of things they wanted out of this. They wanted people to rally behind. Yes. One, they judged the behavior and the person, not just the behavior, but the person was bad, vile. We have to catch them, and we have to make them pay. What an interesting lot of energy we put into something like that. I can't remember what happened. But it was just kind of, wow, that's a whole...
It goes on all around us.
Yeah.
It's all the time. We have wars, war. That's our set point. We're warriors. We're coming out of the age of the warrior. So, of course, we have that. A warrior has to have a victim, and there has to be a persecutor, because they need to be a hero, And so we're always trying to be the hero in our world. So we set things up so that there's a victim, there's a persecutor, and there's a rescuer. And we dance around that, taking turns with each other to play that game. And I think that it would be a mistake to call any of those positions wrong, or that whole dance wrong, because then again we're getting into more judgment.
Yeah. No, it's not about. It's interesting
curious.
To see. Yeah, it's interesting to see though the different roles we do play. In our human condition, and then when you see them, you can choose something else. Because when you said, okay, somebody hit your button and you became angry. So to me, whenever anger comes up, it's there's some fear. There's usually fear behind anger. So, okay, so my question when, your anger came up, then I'm thinking, so what was the fear behind that? What was the...
Right.
And you said
need.
freedom. You were...
And that's... What the need is oftentimes is to be safe, to have something stop, to make, to make a position clear, to be understood. Those are all positions that can come up, anything really. But in that particular situation, you're absolutely right. What was the need? What was my need under the anger? Wasn't that the anger was wrong.
No.
The anger expressed need, yes.
Right. And that's important for us to know, that not to, because we have been, really taught that anger is bad, and it's not. I mean, it's...
Well, especially with...
and to have ways to express it, and like you said, then you went through the whole thing. Well, what did you need to do then to release the anger? And for you, that was take some action, have a discussion, think about it, consider it. But I think it's important for us to see that, because there's other ways that people would have a situation like you had, where the anger comes up and it's just vile. I mean, it feels awful in your body, and instead of expressing it or doing anything, we push it down, push it down, push it down. And, that's...
And else we throw another person, or, or have a discussion with another person and be angry about a third something, so that we can express it. And the power of the anger is very lost then, because anger is like pain. It's to get us out of something. Pain, we put our hand on a hot stove. It means take your hand off the hot stove. This is dangerous. Anger shows us something is wrong in our reality. Something for us is not right. And
interesting.
I'm not that everybody would have that reaction, but to me it was very not right, because for me, when my freedom is threatened, which means I have fear of being controlled. I want to be the one in control.
Well,
so,
I think
it's just ourselves, but we don't have to stop there and analyze. It's really good to know these things about ourselves, but as we get to know ourselves better, we move into that place where we can step back from it and look, okay, how will I deal with this situation where I'm not creating anybody as a victim, anybody as the persecutor, or anybody as the rescuer? How do I speak my truth without, and it's very hard because our language is full of very loaded and weighted words that trigger, and everyone's going to be triggered because we all have our own unique triggers. But when we go
that's
into
so
that,
true, isn't it?
Yes.
Like they're
Did
individual.
I need to say
a person can say a word, and another person has an image of that word, which may be really neutral to some people, but not to others.
I love that classic story about the three old friends who had known each other in university in New York and went on their lives, moved away, but had a little reunion, the three of them, and they're in New York, and they get on a bus. And they ask, because they're not exactly sure how to get to where they're going, where they want to go, one of them asked the bus driver to let them know when they get to such and such a street. And the bus driver was quite rude to them. And each of the three women afterward, when they were discussing them, they had a very different reaction. One woman was very affronted. How you're being rude to me. And the second one was very, I've stepped out of my bounds here. This is terrible. And the third one went, oh, this is New York. Rude bus drivers. This is... So, and that's the truth. And we assume that people have the same reaction as us, but that's just not true. All of us have unique reactions.
That's good.
And beyond that, there, so we assume that there's a right reaction. So we develop our standards of political correctness, and it gets a little tiresome, It makes our world very small. And then we have these fears, so we set up these contracts with each other. Oh, you can't say that to me. Oh, you can't, and some of the contracts are very important because, when people are damaged by, especially physical reactions, you can't hit me. Well, yeah, that's quite a violation. But when we get into, kind of these subtle contracts where we rarely put them into words, but someone, gets that hurt look in their eyes when you say something about them, or say something to them, they're hurt. And then your job is, or my job is, to protect them from their hurt by never saying that again. And it limits our freedom. It limits the truth. So that's just another whole area where we need to be very aware of the subtle contracts that we're writing with the people in our lives. And you get it on Facebook all the time because you're not seeing people's eyes as you talk to them. And but it's still, people are reactive.
Yeah.
And
we're not
just
very... Well, it's just, sometimes we're not very conscious of our choices of words and what we say. I mean, I know myself, I'm very quick. I type very fast and I think very fast, and I read something and then I'm on to the next thing, and because I'm busy and I'm going like crazy. And I find that sometimes it happens that you don't really think about. I mean, it's not designed for that. Some of social media, I mean, look at Twitter, you only got 140 characters, so you're not saying much. I actually do think it's interesting, I do think more concisely when I'm posting something on Twitter than I do on Facebook, where I can go on and on and on. So I do choose my words. Yeah, that's interesting.
We are creating an exquisite world. Until next time, take care.